Hello, Garland Nixon here with the one and only Jamarl Thomas, and it's 4 o'clock on Friday. That means we got to talk about this week's news. Let's talk. Hello, Garland here with Jamarl Thomas. And just so in case everybody doesn't know what's happening, when Jamarl and I come on together, we both we run it simultaneously on both channels. And so if you're not a member of Jamarl's channel and you're a member of mine, plap on over there and make sure you go to Jamarl Thomas and become a member of his channel and vice versa. So become members of both channels. Also, you can see all of the stuff scrolling across the bottom, and you can follow me at other locations. And of course, there's various ways to donate and go to Jamarl's channel. All the same things are there. All right, Jamarl, let's start this week. The thing we got to, I get every time Trump said something and I do this. Oh, can you believe he said that? I go back to this. And about 2 weeks into Trump's presidency, I said, I got to remember this. Only pay attention to what Trump does. Ignore what he says. Because Donald Trump, Zelensky's a dictator. A week later, hey, did you call Zelensky a dictator? Did I say that? Dictator? I don't recall. Remember that? Okay. And I'm like, I got to remember. He might say anything. And the latest is, doggone it, if Iran doesn't do what I want, they'll rinse me. I'll tear them to shreds. I'm going to destroy them, right? And a lot of people have flipped out. Me like, oh, can you believe he said that? But I got to get back to who knows what the hell? Last week it was, I'm talking to the Russians and they're willing to work with me. And we're going to work through the Russians and get a deal with Iran. Oh, okay. Well, if I was Iran, I wouldn't trust you. But okay, the next week, if Iran doesn't do what I want, they're dead men. I get a feeling that next week it'll be back to, I've talked to Vladimir Putin again, and I think we're almost to the deal with it. What the hell's that? Anyway, Jamarl.
This is so stupid. Because it's putting Iran in a position where it can't negotiate. It's like, hey, that's a nice car you got there. If you don't negotiate with me, I'm going to punch you in the face. And you're like, are you out of your mind? Right? How can I negotiate under those terms? The moment that I negotiate under those terms, I'm negotiating under threat. And the fact that I'm negotiating with you means that I'm acknowledging the fact that I'm under threat as we negotiate. Okay, I'm a sovereign country. I can't do that. Full stop. Can't do it. So you've given me an ultimatum that I can't accept on principle alone, in which case they don't. We're not going to negotiate with you under threat. We are willing to negotiate. This is the idiocy of it. Iran is willing to negotiate. It is obvious they are. Pezeshkian, the president, was trying to negotiate with America. And now you've effectively put them in a position where it is impossible. They can't do it. Nobody would do it. No country worth their salt would do it under those terms. And so it's like, okay, just purely on idiocy alone of wanting to be the strong American president that is showing how strong he is by threatening, I'm going to attack you in 2 months if you don't do whatever and negotiate under duress. And to make it even worse, you've added 2 months into it. So it's one thing if it's, I may attack you. Okay, that's one thing. Fair enough. I'm going to ignore your threat in this case. I will attack you in 2 months. It's different. You've put something down. You've put time constraint on the thing that you said that you were going to do that is going to effectively destroy the world's energy markets. Because there may be people who are blustering that, oh, America can take out the nuclear sites. Okay, yeah. And the war was going to end in 2 months or 3 months. Meaning, this is nonsense. Like every general promises the moon. It's going to be finished by Christmas. It's always Christmas, right? It's never finished by Christmas. Every military says this stuff, and it's never true. And so it's like, there's a level of idiocy built into the very framing of the way Trump is doing. He's not dealing with the Russians like this. If you notice, he's not. And, you know, as I was talking to Miranda and I pointed out, well, that's because the Russians took their respect at the barrel of a gun. And, you know, gotta feel weird saying this stuff, but I guess we're talking about foreign policy, so it is what it is. The truth of the matter is that the fact that Iran backed down may give a certain characteristic of Iran, that they are less willing to be maniacs when they need to be to defend their own integrity. That sounds horrible to say, because that means, okay, dude, you're advocating for war. I'm not advocating for war. I'm trying to point out that the realities on the ground is that the Russians took their respect at the barrel of a gun. Because I would tell you, the way they talked to Russia before and the way they talk to them now are two radically different things. And yet, this is the way that Trump sees Iran. Now, this is something I can prey upon. This is something I can push. When none of that is necessary, they're standing there saying, I'm willing to buy a car. You don't have to threaten me to buy this car. I really do want to buy this car, but I can't buy it when you're threatening me. It's idiocy. It is breathtaking how stupid this is. Meaning that this notion that we must be in this position when we negotiate because we're America. And if we're not in this position, then we look weak. Okay, it's weak in principle to even think that. I can't say enough bad things about this. For all of these people think I'm simply for Trump, you're out of your fucking mind. Sorry. I told you, from my point of view, if the devil does something good,
of course.
Yeah. If he does something bad, I will rap him on the knuckles also. I'm so cynical. I have no belief in anything good in any of this, right? I just have things that I want. And if he is moving on the issue of Ukraine to stop in a war that I think should have happened, great. If he is trying to start another war with Iran, by the way, that may bring in other actors. Let's be very clear, right? They have relationships. Then that's a negative. That's a bad. That's a horrible thing. And that betrays this entire promise of I'm going to end wars, not start them. Okay, where's that guy? Where's that guy? I'm sorry, Colin. Wait, give me your thoughts.
No, you're good. You're good. And I'm with you. Okay, look. That, first of all, an armed robbery, I stick a gun in your back and say, give me your wallet or I'll shoot you. That's not negotiation, right? That's just a threat. It's just armed robbery. If I say, give me your wallet, you got 30 seconds or I'll shoot you. You got 20 seconds. It doesn't matter what period of time I give you. I've said, you must comply with what I want or I'll shoot you. Number one, that ain't negotiation. Number two, if you say, take a deal within 2 months or I'll kill you, I'll attack you, I'll shoot you. That's not negotiation, because what if I don't get the deal I want? Negotiation means I got to put in something. You got to put in something, right? So let's say we say, okay, let's negotiate. Okay. And the U.S. says, here's the deal we want. And Iran says, we don't like it. We're going to add this or take this away. Gives it back to the U.S. The U.S. says, we ain't changing anything. You got another month and a half or we'll kill you.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? I now hand you the deal and you say, I'll take this, but that ain't going to work. Now we're supposedly negotiating, right? But you've already told me you will take the deal that sits in front of you at the end of 2 months or I'm going to attack you, right? Yeah. That means at the end of 2 months, if we're going back and forth and I'm looking at the deal and I say, I still got some tweaks. Sorry, time's up. No more tweaks for you. But what happens if the very first deal that I hand you, you give me tweaks in the very beginning? You say, yeah, but you want inspectors every month. I'll say inspectors every 6 weeks. How's that? And you're like, I ain't changing it. You got your time's counting down. Take this deal. See what I mean? It's the idea, even the concept, the mentality that says, I can argue that I am negotiating, but I'm telling you, you have no choice but to take the deal that I've given you. We're not negotiating over issues. We're negotiating over a time period. I don't care what the deal is. At the end of 60 days, you got to take it. If it's the first deal I offer you and I don't change it, or if I talk with you and pretend to, at the end of it, you got to take it. What happens if we negotiate back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and we come up with a deal, and I say I like the deal, and you say you like the deal, right? Okay. 59 and a half days, you come back to me and say, I changed my mind, all that shit, we forget it here. Here's the very first deal I offered you. Take it. You got half a day. You see what I'm saying? It is not negotiating. It is absurd. It is, again, it's what I said about Donald Trump earlier. one of the ways to try to understand a person is what are their conflict resolution skills? They got a conflict with somebody. How do they resolve them, right? And we've all, you might date someone and very early in a relationship, you find out their conflict resolution skills ain't all that good. You have a conflict and some people say, let's sit down and talk about it. You have a conflict with the next person and they pick up something and throw it at you and they scream, right? You're like, okay, well, I think we've learned something about how the course of this relationship's going to go. We've all been there, right? So my point is his conflict resolution skills, he doesn't even understand the concept of that. It is, I must use coercion to get people to do what I want, unless I think they're capable of stopping me. For instance, Russia. Yeah, better not do that. I suspect Donald Trump wouldn't be thrilled about attacking China, only because China's so powerful. That of course, there's crazies in administration that want to, but Trump would be like, we might get a butt kick. Here's the thing about it is, don't underestimate the power of Iran. You attack Iran, that could go bad. And as I've said before, here's the other part of it. If you attack, Iran has already said, look, if you attack us and this situation starts to get out of hand, we're going to flatten all the oil infrastructure. They specifically said we will flatten all of the oil infrastructure, all of it in the region. We will wipe out all of your bases and we will destroy the entire Western economy, right? So what Trump is saying, realistically, everybody knows they can do it. We can't stop their missiles from doing it. They got hypersonic missiles. Okay. So what Trump is saying is, look, you got 2 months. At that point, I'm going to wipe out our own economy and destroy my presidency. Because let's face it, if gas is, I don't know, $20 a gallon, if you can even find it at a gas station, which you won't be able to, and it's $20 a gallon, his concept of lowering inflation is going to go out the window. Anything economic, any plans he had, everything, countries around the world will be isolated as crazy, you know what I mean? And will wipe out everybody else's economy. His at that point, his presidency goes through as down as like one of the worst in history, right? So he's saying, if you don't do what I want, I'll wipe out my presidency. I'll obliterate my legacy. I'll destroy my economy.
Yeah.
It's absurd. And the truth is, I don't believe he'll do it. I think within a week or two, Donald Trump's going to come back and say, we've talked with the Russians and they're going to help us talk to Iran. Of course, then maybe a week after that, he'll say, we're going to blow Iran up. And then the next week he'll say, we've talked to the Russians and I get it. And I'm going to be like, I'm putting my fingers in my ear when this lunatic talks.
Now, you are right that apparently he was trying to talk to the Russians in order to talk to the Iranians, basically a back channel between the two groups. The 2-month deadline is problematic because, if you go back on your word, nobody thinks you're serious. They don't take you seriously. And if you're a strong man, you said in 2 months to do this or X, maybe he backs out. I hope he does back out. Iran is not going to talk to Trump. I'm sorry. This nonsense of believing that you can bully all of these countries. Okay, you can do that to Europe. You can do that to Canada. I don't think you can do that to countries that don't like you. Like, meaning I'm not certain that a country and a population would accept the leader of their country being weak in the face of political opposition from countries they know to be enemies, like the US. And so, I mean, you might be entirely right that Trump finds a face-saving mechanism device that allows him to say, hey, I had this conversation and everything is good now. We can talk. And I'm still looking strong as we come up with some kind of mechanism to have a conversation. He may do that. That is, the best presidents can do that. I'll say it that way. Like this ability to find something to hold on to, just like, I got this. This is okay. I'm backing out of this because of this reason, whatever that is. But it still looks like you gave a 2-month deadline and you backed out of your 2-month deadline. That's what it looks like. It looks like you're not being serious. Now, to be fair to Trump, nobody thinks he's serious anyway, right? Like, as he says, he says shit all the time. And I got to be honest, I found myself in the same position where I'm typically like, I'm unclear about what he does. Like, he says so much random stuff that it's like, okay, I don't know what if this is true. The deadline gets me though, because like you said, something would need to take place for him to be able to walk that back, and I don't know what that is.
I bet you this. I bet you by next Friday, when we're talking, we're like, Well, there goes all of that. By next Friday, he's going to say, tweet, through social, something about, I've talked with Iran's government, even if he didn't. I've talked with Iran's president. Things are looking rosy. We're going to get a deal. Russia's going to help us. China's going to help us. All is good. We're going to bring peace to Iran. You know what I mean? Within a week, I'll bet you this. You wouldn't bet money if I said, I bet you $100 that within a week, he's done a 180. You wouldn't bet. I wouldn't take the bet if anybody offered me. Not that I'm sure, but I wouldn't take that bet based on the fact that Zelensky's a dictator. Did you call Zelensky a dictator? I don't remember saying that. Dictator? Nah. Ooh, he's a great guy.
There's a lot of hardcore Zionists in that administration that have a hard on for Iran. So I hope you're right. I think you're probably right. But it is maddening. You know what it puts me in mind of the Brits? Like where they had this stiff upper lip, the sun never sets on the British Empire. They are a tiny island with, 3 people in their military, right? And yet they act like we're masters of the world. Even today they act that way. It is like it is the most maddening thing in the world for how they view themselves versus how they actually are. The notion, the Killstormers out there, we're going to put troops in Ukraine. Okay, they're going to get massacred. They laughed at you in the White House when you said that, right? They used it as a punchline in the White House. And yet he will go out there and say it as if we own 51% of the globe like we did after World War I. Dude, it's not the case. And I guess I feel like the U.S. is getting very similar traits and behaviors, especially among presidents. Especially among presidents like Trump. The notion that Joe Biden stands there and said we're going to blow up somebody else's pipeline is astonishing. Like that is mind blowing, right? Having JD Vance go out and say we don't care what Europe thinks. We don't care. They can scream all they want. We don't care. And to say it openly in a microphone on TV with his face showing, with everybody knowing this is the vice president of the United States. Again, that is mind blowing. And yet, that's what you get in this administration and in Democratic administrations, which is the reason why I brought up Joe Biden in this case. It's not just Trump. They do it in different ways. Trump is just more over the top in the way that he does it. Joe Biden, by the way, did not go back to the JCPOA. So, this could have been on some level resolved. Maybe Trump would have pulled out of it again. Who knows? I'm just pointing out that his predecessor put it in play. Trump got out of it. Joe Biden never went back to it, even though everybody assumed Joe Biden was going to go back to it. And so Trump is now, let's negotiate, but we're now going to negotiate with an iron fist hanging over your head as if this is something that Iran in any way could tolerate or accept. It's a non-negotiation, right? I mean, in real terms, that is being called a negotiation. And you could say, okay, well, there's a meta negotiation taking place with this idea that maybe we get Iran to get a weaker deal because they're afraid that we're going to somehow attack Iran. Yeah, but Iran wants to buy the car. It's that part. It's not like you're dealing with somebody that doesn't want to negotiate with you. You're dealing with somebody that does want to negotiate with you. They just can't do it under these terms. And so it's like your terms are unnecessary. This is, God, man, this is like Ukraine and it's like Taiwan. China is not going after Taiwan like that. If it wasn't for us putting weapons into Taiwan. If you leave it alone, nobody messes with it. And we can agree upon that. When you touch it, I'm going to have to touch it too. Same thing in Ukraine, right? Neutral country, no issues. The moment you start touching it, the other, okay, they're touching it, we got to get involved. Afghanistan, same thing. Nobody's touching it, everybody's good. The moment you touch it, we have to touch it, we have to get involved. If you leave it alone, it works. You can get a deal. You can get a deal. You can go to Iran. You can actually do that. You can do the North Korea thing. But you can't do it like this. And that's the maddening thing for me. That Trump could get the deal that he wants. He may even be able to get a great deal. Actually, since Iran does seem to be willing. Pezeshkian was willing. The government was trying to negotiate. Pezeshkian came out and even said he wanted negotiations, and the Ayatollah did. And effectively that, okay, I'm aligning myself with the Ayatollah since he's the one in charge, but I wanted negotiations. The government wanted negotiations. You could get it. He just doesn't have the competence to do so, or he intentionally wants to sabotage any notion of getting a deal. It's one or the other. Which one do you think it is?
Well, and let's not forget, he talked to Russia, and he said, yes, we talked to the Russians, and they said they're willing to mitigate, to work with us with Iran. And remember this, when he first talked to Putin, the first time he says, oh yes, we talked to him, and he says he's willing to talk with North Korea, he's willing to talk with Iran. So you've got President Putin saying, yeah, well, we can talk to Iran, and we're good friends with them, we'll see what we can do, can't guarantee anything, but we're ready to talk, right? Okay. So you're in a position to talk, and you go blabbering, they better do what I tell them to do, or not. As I said, that'll just change. Give us a week. Within a week, it'll be, oh no, the Iranians, I don't remember saying that. If I remember correctly, I said they were my best friends. You know what it is? It looks unhinged.
Yeah, it does.
It really, his foreign policy is starting to look incoherent and unhinged, unprofessional. Yeah. It looks like amateur hour. If it looks like amateur hour to us, and people have had enough. What did the Chinese say? Look, they said, oh, he's like, we're going to hit the Chinese with all kind of tariffs. And I'm thinking, yeah, they can hit us with a lot more tariffs that are really going to hurt. He's like, we're going to run tariffs to everybody. And I'm like, and you think nobody's going to tariff you back, dude? Right. You're going to take a hit. But we're going to tariff them. And the Chinese say, look, we had enough of your mouth. If you want to do a tariff war or any other kind of war, we're ready. Yeah. The Iranians have recently said, look, we'll whatever you're going to do. You know what I mean? If you're going to attack us. We don't want a war, but if it happens, we're ready for it. Whatever you're going to do, whatever, go for it, right? People have heard your yap so much. They're at a point where they're saying, okay, whatever you're going to do, if you're going to do something, do it. But we're sick in here, you tell it, because Trump's all mouth. It's obvious he's all mouth with the Russians. 1 week it's yes. Now, how about this? 1 week. Yes, we've looked into this, and the Russians, they're not at fault. I mean, come on. If we came up to their border, they came up to our border, I understand how they feel. The next week, well, the Russians are going to have to do that, and we're going to formulate crushing blows of they got 25,000 sanctions. We're going to add another couple dozen. Boy, that'll really end it. That screw them once and for all, right? It seems like he just blabbers, he just talks, and you cannot connect what he's talking about to what he's doing. You just can't do it. But I will say this. Notwithstanding the stupidity of Iran, because that's going to infect, what he said about Iran, I think the MAGA coalition, as it were, could fall apart on Donald Trump. This business about I'm going to be Mr. Peacemaker and all this kind of stuff. All right, now you've turned into Genocide Joe. You do. That's what that. Look, am I mistaken? Joe had a crappy career. His whole career was crap, and then it was finished, destroyed by the Gaza thing. Oh, the only thing everybody's going to remember him is Genocide Joe. Okay. Yeah. Trump. Okay, you had some level of people felt sorry for you because the deep state went after you. That wasn't fair. They didn't really get to see what you would do. Okay, so now you come in here, you bring in, you're in a situation where you're saying, I'm going to be the peacemaker and all that, and you're making yourself look like an idiot. Did I mention you're overseeing the same genocide as Joe now? I think a big part of the MAGA coalition is starting to say, dude, you only been here for 8 weeks. He's losing credibility amongst, I think, a significant part. There's ones that are going to, no matter what, support him, sure. But there's a big part of that coalition that's starting to get cold feet. What do you think? Did we lose you? Did you freeze up? Oh, no, I think Jamarl has frozen. Can't hear you. Can you hear me? I think he's losing his... Maybe he'll pop out and pop back in. Yep, he'll come back. His internet, I'm sure. But yeah, I think that. Think about it. When Donald Trump won, he had this coalition. He had the MAGA people, what the people that I refer to as the former Tea Party. He had them. Fair enough. They were going to stay with him. That was his foundation. But he ended up with a bunch of people. Oh, there we go. He's back. There we go. Your thoughts of what I was mentioning.
Dropped out. I couldn't tell if it was me or if it was you. I was like, okay, something just happened.
Yeah. Anytime that happens, just plop in and plop in. All right. So as I was saying, the danger of the MAGA coalition collapsing or at least minimizing to the point where he doesn't have the level of political support that he needs. You still there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're saying
okay,
Yeah, I mean, it depends. It depends. If you believe that MAGA are principled, um, true believers, and that's in the things of, oh, I'm a peacemaker, I'm et cetera, I'm lower inflation, I'm getting a better economy. If they believe that stuff and they're true believers, okay, maybe they feel some kind of way, but they got to be honest actors, right? If you believe they are Democrats on the red side, then no, it's not going to matter. It just depends on who you believe MAGA is.
It's a coalition, though. Keep in mind something. He had his MAGA coalition, which were the Tea Party, right? But what happened? You had people who, for this election cycle, that voted for Trump, that said, "I'm sick of the economics, and it was better under." They don't love his policies, but they felt, hey, he's going to maybe lower inflation, or at least it was better under him. Let's give him a shot, right? You had people who were pissed and like, why are they spending all the money on Ukraine and Israel and everything, and they're not spending money on, North Carolina or the fires or East Palestine, right? You had those people. They weren't traditional Trump supporters. I could name several groups that switched over to vote for Trump because they, for economic reasons, things that Biden did that pissed him off, genocide, Joe. And then Trump played the role. He said, I'm the peacemaker, judge me by the peace. And they said, okay, I'll vote for him, right? So there's a big chunk of his coalition. You got people that came over with Tulsi and RFK Jr. that aren't, traditional cultural MAGA people and stuff like that. Who said, I may feel a different way on abortion or this or that, but you know what? Let's give Trump a shot. And that is you put all of them together, that's what gave him a really good winning coalition.
No, you're absolutely right.
He could lose.
But Trump only won by, 1.5 million votes?
Yeah.
So it wasn't like a huge amount that he won by. Did Tulsi, RFK Jr., and whoever else bring that many people over? Maybe. Yeah. I mean, that's not a huge, it's a 320 million people country. 1 million, 2 million, that's not necessarily a huge amount. And even within the context of a coalition, as you point out, there's going to be a section of the coalition that is going to be true believers. Mm-hmm. Whatever that percentage is, they're there. They have to be, right? It's like this coalition. And so you're right. But here's the rub. Trump is not running again. I mean, does he really care about what happens next? If that makes sense.
I think he does.
I mean, I hear you. I do hear you. I just,
his ego's huge. He does care about that. Trump he does not want to see his ratings go. He's watching his approval ratings. He does not want to see them go into the tank. He doesn't want to go in the midterms and get obliterated and everybody say you're a total failure. And that would be death, tantamount to death for Trump. So his ego is the biggest part of him. He wants to go into the midterms and win and be strong and all of that stuff. And he ain't moving in the right direction to do that.
I don't think so. CNN did a poll and they were showing that he started to tick lower. Like he's losing points over the course of this time frame. It's only been 2 months. And Trump is, a rock sinking on some level. And look, and to be fair to him, presidents over the course of, they get 100 days. It's almost like the American public gives them a grace period. Like, okay, we'll watch. We'll see what happens. And we're not going to leave you too fast. We're just going to watch. But I don't think they signed up for destruction of the Department of Education. I don't think they signed up for destruction of Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. And yeah, I'm saying it's the destruction of those things, even if they don't go after them directly. This argument of waste, fraud, and abuse is nonsense. It's almost like saying enhanced interrogation. I'm going to change the name of something to make it into something else. And so, we're just looking for waste, fraud, and abuse. And we are firing people left and right, shut down buildings and all of this other stuff. That is not what people signed up for. And that Trump is coming out of Florida, no less, promised the American public, I am not going to touch Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and flagrantly betrayed the American public. Flagrantly betraying the American public.
Which takes us right into old Doge boy, right? He's old Doge is going to be one of the really worst things that's happening to Trump. Number one, nobody voted for him. Number two, he really kind of comports himself as a jerk. And he acts like he runs. And everybody's like, what is this guy doing wandering around the White House doing whatever he wants? What policy? What is he? What is his position? Who is he? Right. And he's even, Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. And people are like, holy crap. What? People that's like what they live off of. You got two people, a man and a wife, and they get Social Security. They got a few other pennies, maybe not much else. And they're just making it by Social Security, and he's calling it a Ponzi scheme. And Trump said, "I won't touch it." Meanwhile, let's just fire everybody in Social Security. So now they're calling, "Hey, I got a problem. I'm sorry, there's nobody here to answer your phone." And they're like, "Oh, my Social Security checked even. He's just fired half the people in Social Security." And as you said, waste, fraud, and abuse that's a lot. Come on, you don't just come in and say, "You know what? The Department of Agriculture, we're going to fire 25,000 people." What for? Waste, fraud, and abuse. Will that do it? It's obvious that they just want to trim. For whatever reason, do they want to replace them with AI? They want to trim this federal. They want to get rid of a bunch of people to make the government smaller to save money, and to use a worse guy that could do it. A man who's got minimum of $5 billion in federal government contracts. Minimum. I know in 2024 he had at least 5 billion. So he's got contracts with NASA and space, whatever. He's got all these contracts with federal government, and that's the guy you use to fire a bunch of soccer moms at the Department of Agriculture who are paying their bills. It's a bad look, and it's the true believers. Sure, the libertarian wing of MAGA will go, "Yay, fire, get rid of, we don't even need government. We need like one person in each, get rid of everything. We'll just have one guy in the White House, nobody else. We'll all take care of ourselves. Fire departments, we don't need those. We'll use bucket lines. We'll go down to the creek and we'll pass bucket." The knuckle dragging libertarians who just, are diehard Javier Milei ideologues, but there ain't enough of them to keep it going.
Mm-hmm. And the American public thinks, "Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry."
No, I was going to say, so the old Doge boy and all that stuff. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a horrible look. This notion, and you know what's funny? Even Republicans have begun to notice this is a bad look. There was an article, I believe it's on Axios, and it points out how Lisa Murkowski put her name to the article, effectively saying, "This is horrible. This is the third rail of American politics. You cannot have him going out here saying this stuff. It hurts us as Republicans." And to your point, when the soccer mom doesn't get her check, or that check is, 4 times longer than what it needs to be because he's been slashing Social Security and shutting down locations and firing people, who are they going to blame? Well, they're going to blame Doge boy running around saying Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. That's what they're going to blame, which is what Murkowski is complaining about, and other Republicans who wanted to remain anonymous were complaining about. Effectively saying, this is going to hurt us. Now, will it? Is the question. I agree with you. I think Elon Musk is albatross. Meaning I think he's around Trump's throat and not to a positive or to a benefit. But I'm not in MAGA circle, so I don't know the way they look at him and the way they think of him. But from my point of view, and from just random American point of view, why is Elon Musk in the White House? Why is he running around the White House like this? What is he doing looking into all of these files and looking at all of these departments? What does he know about these departments that makes him competent enough to fire all of these workers? Those, I think, are legitimate questions to ask for any random American who's looking at this and thinking to themselves, why is the president doing this? Look, I get the waste, fraud, and abuse stuff, but I think it's hard to argue to say thousands of workers are waste, fraud, and abuse. That just seems not fly.
Well, and here's the thing about it. Okay, I can understand when they said, "Look, the USAID and the National Department, whatever, NED, right?
Yeah,
Endowment for Democracy. We know what they are. We know what they do. Everybody knows understands foreign policy, knows what they are, knows what they do. And if somebody said, "Look, we're going to get rid of them, we're going to wipe them out," but maybe the regions, the people that give food to poor people or something, a little bit of that'll stick around, but the rest has got to go. I would say, well, if your foreign policy is not going to be regime change stuff all over the place, then you don't need those in reality. That's a foreign policy issue. That's not as has to do with America. But when you just go and you send letters, literally letters to millions of of workers and say, "Yeah, send me a letter that said what you did last week." What you did last week, what does that have to do with waste, fraud, and abuse? And who's going to read every letter? Okay, let's read every letter. Well, this guy, I was off last week because I broke my ankle in a basketball game, so I had to take off. I come back next week, so I didn't do anything last week. Okay, fire him. What does he do? Oh, he's the head of the nuclear agency and make sure that we don't have leaks into the nuclear power plant. You know what I mean? They're getting rid of people in that. The Nuclear Energy Agency. Are some of these people the ones that actually inspect nuclear power plants? You know what I mean? Perhaps some of those people you might want them to stick around. As you said, if you're asking me, I'm going to be like, as I've said, you got to give me a year. I got to do evaluation top to bottom. I got to bring in teams, and he brings in a bunch of teenagers, 20 years old geeks, to like put some computer programs around and look over everything and say, oh, we can get rid of these 10,000 people. And you know, as well as I do, know what's going to happen. 6 months from now, people are going to come back and say, we didn't get our permits for this or that. These parks didn't have this, didn't have. All these things are going to happen. And they're not going to have anybody to do it because they fired everybody. And that's going to hurt the economy because you're firing a bunch of people that pay for houses and this and all of that. And this concept that the government's going to save that money, that the government's going to say, okay, we fired people and now we've got $2 billion left, $3 billion left out of a $6 trillion budget. You know what I mean? With 10 billion. Okay, let's say they say 10 billion. They're going to take that damn money and give it to Lockheed Martin. You know as good as well as I do. That's the next thing. They're going to fire regular employees. They're not going to take that money and say, well, I guess we need to do that to give it back to average Americans. No, they're not. They're not going to cut a damn budget out of it. He's like, yes, and we'll cut the Pentagon budget. We're going to fire these people and they ain't cutting a penny out of the Pentagon budget. In fact, they will increase it. In fact, let me make a bet. They will increase the Pentagon budget by more than they saved from firing all the soccer moms at the Department of the Environment and stuff.
I'm not going to take you up on that bet because I think you're absolutely right. Well, one exception, tax cuts. I think they're going to give themselves tax cuts. They're going to be like, yeah, this is great. So we can now give ourselves this much and we can say that the budget is better off. I'm super skeptical that they're going to be able to cut $2 trillion out of the budget because that's what they would need to, at the very least, not go up. And then it's like, okay, well, how do you whittle down 36 trillion? But again, I don't believe Republicans care about the budget all that much. I mean, I think they get lip service, but I don't know how much they actually care about it. But you're absolutely right. I mean, they're acting like these people aren't people. They're just numbers or something. And so if they fire them, no big deal. You're talking about somebody's life. There's a responsibility on some level. Okay, you got this job, you were doing your job, you're the government. So it's not even like you have this kind of pressure of business in a typical way. And then you're fired because some rando decided in flip-flops that you weren't necessary. Not caring the fact that you might have a kid, might have life, or you will have a life by definition. It's just it's outrageous. And like you said, those people got to eat. Those people spend money into the economy. That one, all that's gone.
Look, I have a question.
And again, I have no belief. And by the way, to your point, they increased the Pentagon budget by $6 trillion.
And I have a question, Donald Trump. You want to stop waste, fraud, and abuse? The United States can't afford this money anymore. We got to cut back. How much is it costing to bomb the Houthis? How much is it costing to pay for, because we are paying for 1,000,000%. We are 102% paying for everything Israel does. We're providing the fuel for their jets. We're providing the fuel for their boats, ships. We're providing the missiles that go in them. We're providing everything. We're probably paying all of their salaries because Israel doesn't really have an economy. Their economy is pretty much collapsed. So we're paying for that. We're paying for, how much does it cost to keep several aircraft carrier groups on scene in the Middle East because they got to be doing this and that? How much does it cost to bomb the Houthis? How many billions and billions of dollars are you spending for the Israeli project? Okay, and you're concerned we got soccer moms and people who have families, we got to fire all them because of weight, fraud, and abuse. We can't afford it. We got to save money. We can't do this anymore. How much would it cost for a war in Iran? What would be the price tag for a war in Iran? The price tag would be everything. That would be the price tag, all of it. How much? Think about ultimately, if we went to war in Iran and our economy collapsed, and we went from a $22 trillion economy to, a 12, $15 trillion economy because our economy collapsed. Oh boy, you sure saved a lot of money firing people from the Department of Energy and Department of the Environment, Department of Education, and that's what I think he should do. If he's so much about money and saving money and he's threatening Iran, he should give us a price tag. What would it cost if we go to war for Iran and that war lasts for 1 year? Because when you started, what is it going to cost in all the bases? What's the cost of them flattening all the bases? What's the cost of energy loss? All the things that we would cost, job loss, everything. What would be the price we would pay for Iran? You're not willing to pay somebody who fixed freaking copy machines at an office for the Department of Agriculture. But how much would it cost for a war with Iran? You're willing to do that? That again makes him look like a preposterous and absurd, contradictory figure.
Yeah, for it to be that small. You're absolutely right. And one of the things they pointed out was the idea that the world's richest man with nearly $500 billion is firing people who are making $30,000 a year. That is a horrible look. And that's what I said. I think the guy's an albatross. Like, I don't think there may be elements of Maga that like Elon Musk, but Trump gets elected because of the rest of the American public, not just MAGA. I think he doesn't work in this positive way. I mean, like the way the American public sees him, I would say it may be more negative, but that's my take on it. I don't see how he's a positive in this case. I mean, it looks horrible. You're effectively taking food out of the mouths of babies, and you're the world's richest man doing it. You look like Scrooge McDuck. It looks horrible. And yet he is blissfully, in his own world, the fog of his own brilliance as he goes about doing this stuff. It's insane.
Yeah, to watch the speed at which this happened, because Tulsi Gabbard, I brought this up, for the last 8 years, she's been anti-war and pro-peace and all of that. 8 weeks in, she's turned into, Mike Pompeo / Tony Blinken. Oh, we got to bomb Yemen. We got to bomb everybody. We'll stand up against the blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's 100%, that's 180 degrees from where you've been. From 8 years of a steady drumbeat of peace and anti-war, and 8 weeks, you don't sound that different from Tony Blinken. I mean, you went to Washington, as they said, you didn't change Washington. Washington changed you. Tulsi Gabbard's credibility has collapsed. She had a long time building, 8 weeks, and her people are like, she's just another one of them.
Trump's pawns. That's the way you should look at it. And the reason I say that, look at Rubio. And I think when you and I were talking, I pointed out how weird it is to see Rubio take this role, because Rubio believes in nothing what Rubio is doing right now. Like, Rubio's a hardliner on the whole Russia issue. And yet Rubio has been bent into shape in order to play this figure, this character, representing Trump's interests in this way. It's so bizarre to see him take that role. I'm saying Gabbard is the exact same way. Gabbard is taking the role based upon what her principal wants her to take. And that looks horrible, because it's like you pointed out, for 8 years, you've been this person. This has been your mantle. This is the thing to which you stand on. And within 2 months, 8 weeks, up in smoke. Up in smoke. I will be what you need me to be, whatever that is. Yep, you need me to be a warmonger? I will be a warmonger. How I serve at the leisure of the president. That's what it is. At least that's what I think it is. I think all of these people are playing the roles that Donald Trump wants them to play. And they know those roles. You go out and do this. Okay, I'm going to go out and do this. I'm going to represent my interests. And the wild part about that, I'll often think to myself, what do you tell yourself as you do that? If indeed you don't believe it. So it's like, let's say for the moment you're playing a role that you don't entirely believe, but you're playing it because it's your job to play it in the moment that you're given the job. Okay, for Rubio, fair enough. I don't know if Rubio has any values at all. Like, he just may be a vampire.
Yeah, no,
I could be whatever I need to be.
Yeah.
But let's say you're dealing with somebody with those values. Does that person say, I work around the edges? Like, that's the strongest I can do. I can work around the edges. I'm going to do what the president wants. But on the issues that I care about, I'm going to try to work around the edges. And is that a positive or negative? What are your thoughts on that? I mean, because as you pointed out, Gabbard has been a very steady, hand at the tiller for 8 years. And then, bam, all of a sudden, we must go to war. Okay, that's a fascinating change. Why that change? Did she not believe what she said before? Or is she lying now? Which one is fair? Which one is true? And is it, I'm doing my job? And in the context of my job, I think I can get things around the edges. Is it that? Like, give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah,
I
that's
know
a good
that's a
point, because
slightly
you know what?
philosophical.
There's something to be said for that. And that's the old 3D chess. Are they just saying that in the open, saying, okay, I'm far better to be here. And I'll say, yes, we're going to blast Ukraine, Iran. We're going to do this. We're going to blast Yemen. And then when I go back and I get in a behind closed doors with the president, I say, look, President, this isn't a bad idea. It's a good idea. It's your decision, but it's not a good idea because this could happen, that could, this is not blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And, hey, and I say to myself, if I leave, they're going to bring in one of those neocons who ain't going to tell them what I'm going to tell them. So
Right.
I'm not going to write that off. I can see myself doing that, making that, and maybe you can too. If I made the calculation and I said, I'm here, I can pull back on the reins. But if I leave, they're going to bring in some knuckle dragging neocon who ain't going to try to pull back on the reins, right? So I got to take a bullet. I got to go out and I got to pretend that I'm with this guy and everybody's going to hate me and call me a sellout. But behind closed doors, I'm going to try to keep yanking on the reins as much as I can.
Yeah.
Which is noble. And I don't know that that's what it is.
Yeah.
I can hope, but we can't say look, we can't rule that out. That is possible. We can hope that it is. But again, only thing we can do is what we see.
What we know.
In fact, from that perspective, there's two sides. Based on what Tulsi's done for the last 8 years, you would have to assume that that's true. But based on what the empire has done for the last 250 years, you would have to assume that the empire is going to do what the empire is going to do continuously, right? And that, hey, she's there, yeah, but the empire is going to keep doing this. But meanwhile, the other part of it is this. If I'm the Russians, the Chinese, I look at it and I say, I'd like to be able to negotiate with the US, but I understand I'm negotiating with dysfunctional people. You know what I mean? That this is not some sharp group of knowledgeable negotiators, that I got a very dysfunctional group. And behind them, the neocons still exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Think about this. Trump is negotiating with Putin, but behind him is Zelensky and Starmer and these lunatics. And as soon as Trump says, all right, let's not do this, Zelensky's like, okay, let's do it. You know what I mean? Hey, we're not going to hit energy infrastructure. Zelensky, okay, quick. Well, we can hit all the energy infrastructure we can. And you know that Macron and Starmer are 100% behind it. They're providing him the targeting. They're doing everything they can to make it happen. So the other side of it is you've got this administration that so far 8 weeks in seems like they're not very competent.
Yeah.
And number two, you got a bunch of people who behind them who are crazy but smart, and who are doing everything they can to stab them in the back. So the structure that you on the other side of your adversarial structures that you're up against, as the Iranians used to say, thank God for making my enemies fools. Your adversaries are fools, effectively.
Yeah, he needs to pull that card. Like, he really does. I mean, one or two things is true. Trump is turning a blind eye to the sabotage. I mean, it's a humiliation of the highest order. Trump comes out, hey, I talked to the Russians. Donald Trump, talked to the Russians. I talked to Putin myself. I got a ceasefire deal. I got this limited, tiny little thing that I'm going to sell to the public and to the world that I'm making progress. And fair enough, right? Like, it's good that the principles are taught. And in this ceasefire, no hits on energy systems. Now, there's no guarantee that the Russians were going to hit energy systems anyway. They don't necessarily do it just constantly. And so, okay, you got nothing. But fair enough, sell it. Do what you got to do. Putin gave you nothing, though. But he gave you this limited thing where you can sell at the safe face. Ukraine comes out and says, okay, we're down for it. Russia says we're down for it. And within 5 hours, bam, they hit the first thing. And then they do it again. And it's like, okay, that's an FU. That's a clear FU. We're not on board for this. We don't like this. We don't like you. We hate you, Mr. President, and FU on an international level. FU. We don't like you. That is amazing. And we're their benefactors. Like, that is like, how do you do that? But they did that. Is Trump turning a blind eye to that? That's a big deal if he is. Because how are the Russians to negotiate with you under these terms, right? We watch in Gaza where you turn a blind eye to Israel as it flagrantly ignored a deal. And then when Hamas responded, blamed Hamas. So, okay, so you have tendencies that we can see. And now we are in a deal. And in the context of the deal that we're in, they flagrantly violated on purpose as a insult to America and the president for even forcing them to do this. And you do nothing. Now the catch becomes they're still talking, right? So who knows the conversations they're having behind the scenes about, look, when these people are lunatics, they're desperate, just hold the line. Like they may be making, conversation, considering the conversation lines are open. But what if they're not? As you said, they're dysfunctional. They seem to be incompetent. Like all of this stuff is playing out now, but just in the open. And it's Trump seems to have a problem with Zelensky and the UK and France, all of which are hell-bent on killing any negotiations that these guys are having. And you would think that at some point, if he is the strong man that he says he is, he needs to put the boots to Macron, Europe as a whole, like meaning you can't tolerate this. You're trying to end a war, and you are making up for lost time for all of these years where these guys have gone on this full bore propaganda campaign about unprovoked war of aggression, blah, 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 blah. And you have these goofballs fucking it up. That is a problem, and that needs to be dealt with. Oh man, that is such a problem because if you're indeed going to try to get a deal, you're stuck with Zelensky unless you can force him out or get rid of him somehow. And if you don't, you also have France and the UK still saying, we want to send troops and we want to keep going. And as you pointed out, I strongly suspect you're absolutely right. They probably had something to do with him doing it.
You got 100%.
Yeah, you got to deal with that somehow. God, man, I so agree with you on this.
Well, and let me add this. And the other part is Trump looks like an ADD guy because, okay. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to meet next Monday. We're going to put together expert teams, whatever the case may be. Okay, that's where we are now, right? Trump comes out. We can negotiate for, what do you say? Maybe if we took over the Ukraine's power grid, right? Maybe if we run, it'll be better if we run. Trump's trying to do that for money, right? Everybody knows, he's like, yeah, we'll take over your nuclear power plants. We'll run them. Well, everybody knows Trump just wants to go in there and get the money, which in defense of Trump, that's what's been going on all along. Biden's been doing it. Everybody's been doing it. He's just late. Because what do we find out? We find out that a Canadian company is already running them. Sorry, Trump, you're too late. Did you know this? There's a Canadian company. So Trump, I guess, thinking that the Ukrainians are running their own power plant, their own nuclear power plants, says America will come in and we'll run them, and that way the Russians won't blow them up, right? So, but wink, wink, and take all your money. We'll extract more money from your poor little what's left of an economy, right? Too late. The Canadians already did that a couple years ago. After 2014. American, Western, British company, etc., all descended upon Ukraine and took everything, took over all their infrastructure. They're extracting every dime out of that country. So when Trump says, we'll take over your water, they'll be like, no, we got a Belgian company doing that. Oh, okay, we'll take over your electricity, Canadian company. Oh, in that case, we'll take over. We've got a German company doing that. You know what I mean? These Western companies have already gone in and they're extracting every penny. Oh, I know. We'll take over your wheat. Sorry, BlackRock already bought all the wheat fields. You know what I mean? That's what they've already. You're late to the game, Trump. They've been doing that long before you. You're thinking that you're going to come in there and you're going to extract the loot out of Ukraine, brother. They started that in 2014. So don't even think about it, right? So then Trump, we'll do that. Okay. Trump then says, we could have a big, beautiful, I'm paraphrasing, but a big, beautiful resort on the Black Sea in Crimea, right? And they're like, and I know the Russians would be like, we don't even have a deal.
Right.
We're not even close to a deal. We're just putting together teams to start talking about a deal. We're so far from a deal. The word deal shouldn't even be used in our conversation, right? And you're like, well, maybe we can have a resort over here. Oh, maybe we can do this. Maybe, you know what I mean? He looks juvenile. It makes him look juvenile. Focus on a deal. You can't even corral your dogs. They're slobbering all over the place, blowing up. You got a mad dog slobbering all over creation, biting the hand that feeds it right now. You can't control the green goblin. Can't control him. Starmer, what's his name? Macron says, I'm going to extend our nuclear umbrella all over Europe to protect us from the Russians. And they're like, what are you going to do? He says, we're going to take like a half a dozen Rafale fighters and literally put gravity bombs on them. We're gonna put a bomb on this fighter and we're gonna put it up near the German border. So let me get this straight. If for some reason the Russians don't take like one Oreshnikov and flatten the entire airfield that they're at, which they would, they're going to have to take off and fly all the way to Moscow. I have a funny feeling they're not going to make it through their integrated air defense. They're not even going to get to the border. The Russians are going to shoot that thing down 300 kilometers before it gets to the Russian border. In fact, by the time it takes off, the Russians are going to shoot it down with an S-400 before it even gets out of the field. But that is extending your nuclear umbrella over all of it. So you got Macron and these clowns talking crazy. You can't control the Green Goblin. And you're talking about building a resort on the Black Sea. The Russians got to be doing what I'm doing. Like, you've got to be Trump. You've got to do better than that. You're looking juvenile.
But that's Trump. That like is this really any different than how he typically is? I mean, even during the election, he was this way. He could not focus on any one thing for any significant length of time. And the one thing he says today will be repudiated by something he says tomorrow. He has been that way. Like, I don't see any difference between him. I think our issue is the stakes are big. We're trying to end the war. And in the context of trying to end the war, we want you to focus on ending the war. We want you to be mature, disciplined, and get it done. That's like our expectation of any random president who's taken on the task of this size and what it means in regards to the loss of life and stopping that loss of life. And he looks like a clown. Like he, honest to God, looked like he just got out of a clown car. He cannot coherently focus in a way that makes sense. He is all over the place, as you point out, and his team. And maybe this is one of those things where it's like, okay, well, Trump has wants, and he communicates those wants. And his teams goes out and do those ones. And we hope people like Witkoff, even Rubio, weirdly enough, can affect those ones in a real significant way. That is what we have to hope for. And I hope you know what I mean, right? Like that there are actual professionals who is doing the hard work of getting a deal, writing it out, figuring out how to get that to work, what the Russians need, what they want, what the Americans want, like that is doing that in earnest, because it doesn't look like it's coming out the White House. At least what seems to be coming out of the White House is wants. This is what the president wants. He wants to move in this direction of getting a deal somehow. And maybe it's just everyone else is doing the hard work. You're right.
Well, I put it like this. Hegseth seems woefully over his skis, shall we say? He's he's beyond his depth. Same with Waltz. Both of these guys seem incredibly unable to manage the level at which they've risen. Rubio, I suspect, is simply a neocon who's a more polished version of John Bolton. John Bolton was there, and his job was to stab Trump in the back at every corner, but he couldn't contain himself. He just was right out doing it. I think Rubio is going to stumble around. He's kind of hapless, but his job is to be there and to stab Trump in the back and pretend like he's not. That's pretty obvious to me. And then Witkoff, but let's face it, Witkoff is a guy. Look, okay, because you can navigate the New York City real estate scene, and because you can make deals to buy a building on 8th Avenue, does not mean that you can go and sit down with Sergei Lavrov and Vladimir Putin and play
Very
chess
true.
with them people. You're going to
Yeah.
lose that game. You're going to
Yeah.
lose that game every time. They're going to take you to the cleaners, right? So Witkoff is doing something that he's not familiar with. And here's the other thing that I think is disconcerting, maybe is the right word.
Mhm.
Everybody involved knows that their boss is an egomaniac, right? And so everybody that talks, this is every other word. Today, we talked to the Russians, and only Donald Trump could fix this because Donald Trump is wonderful. And then we said we'd like to get a deal because only Donald Trump could get the deal because he's the greatest ever. And then we went and had lunch because Donald Trump makes sure that we have the best lunch that anybody ever had. Nobody ever served a lunch as good as Trump. Right. Then we came back from lunch. We called Donald Trump to once again tell him how wonderful he is. Everything that I hear that's read at a microphone by anybody that worked for Trump is nothing but the whole time stroking Trump's ego over and over and over. And why? Because they all know that's the only job security they have. The only job security, it doesn't matter what they do, how they do it. They got to keep saying, Trump is great, Trump is wonderful, Trump is fantastic. And as we all know, that's a major sign of low self-esteem, that Trump actually doesn't feel good and wonderful, because if you feel good and wonderful, you don't need people to constantly tell you. And they know, everybody knows they got to stroke his ego. The Russians know it too. The Russians, you'll see, they do it. They got a psychological profile of this guy. So everybody that deals with Donald Trump has to deal with his weakness, which, might I add, if you understand somebody's weakness, then you understand how to manipulate them very easily, don't you?
Yeah, that is true. Oh, that is so true. Yeah, I gotta be honest, I like Witkoff, believe it or not. I don't know him. And so when I say I like him, put it in context of, like it's like it's an uninformed point of view. It's purely optics. So that's the context to which I'm saying. And I think it's something very specific. Going to Israel and saying, I don't give a F that it's the Sabbath.
Right, exactly.
I actually like it. It gave me the sense that he was very straightforward, like a bull in his dealings. Like, I'm salty mouth, salty language. I feel perfectly fine saying salty language. I don't care if you feel some kind of way about it. Like, he seems very direct, like a New York guy, right? I think that's a positive, though.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is it comes across as if, look, let's be very honest. The Russians are not going to trust America. I don't care what Donald Trump says. I don't care what Donald Trump promises. He can promise the moon. They are not going to trust America. They know that in 4 years, Trump could be dead, or there could be a Democrat that's running the White House, and all of this can be unraveled, or at the very least, it could be diminished severely, right? So from their point of view, it's like, okay, we're dealing with an untrustworthy actor, just on the basis of operation. And so on some level, yeah, you're going to try to get whatever you can out of Trump in regards to a deal because you want something to be solidified. If that needs flattery, you may get a little bit of flattery. But the fact that you can't be trusted, having somebody that comes across as if he is straightforward is a good thing. That's what I'm saying. I like Witkoff in this spot, because you need somebody that, it's like Colin Powell. I'm not saying Witkoff is trustworthy. I'm just saying a person who comes across as if they're being straightforward is better than somebody who comes across squirrely and untrustworthy when you already have an untrustworthy actor. That's why Witkoff I actually don't hate, even though I think you're absolutely right. Lavrov has been a diplomat forever. Like, he knows what he's doing. And in negotiating, and in any negotiation, Lavrov is going to be a far better, let's say, more suave, more competent at a job than Witkoff had never done before. So 1,000% agree with you on that. I don't know. I shouldn't rehabilitate Witkoff since I don't know the guy. Somebody's going to say, Jamarl is backing this guy, and here's all the faults of Witkoff. But no, man, I agree with you. I mean, they are going to deal with us with a long hand spoon, while simultaneously trying to get any and everything that can be nailed down, as they should. You want this to end. And even if there may be a Democrat coming in office in the next administration, okay, well, we don't know that, right? So you try to get everything that you can now with somebody who is at the very least open to you. Like, meaning, yes, he's an untrustworthy actor, but he's an untrustworthy actor with his arms out. I got a car. I got a car to sell you. It's a great car. It's not a lemon. Buy it. Please buy it. Please, for God's sakes, buy it. It's that. I'm fascinated by it.
Well, let's touch one last thing before we go. I'm going to show you two different articles. Here's the first one. This is we want to do domestic politics. AOC, Bernie Sanders hold they're fighting oligarchy rows. They're going to get her for that salute.
Did that say in Canada?
No, I didn't see it.
What is that? Oh, Colorado.
Yeah. Okay. They better watch their salutes. They're getting a little close. Look at those hands. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. She made that maybe. So she better watch the old salute because they'll get you for that these days. Now let's look at the other one. Share screen. Here we go. Here's a big one. Biden's planning a political comeback. Former U.S. President Joe Biden has offered to raise funds, campaign, and do whatever is needed to help Democrats regain ground lost to the public. Democrats recently came in at 27%. Apparently, a major Biden supporter said, "Who's going to want Joe Biden back in the game?" So that's what the Democrats are. For all of his mishaps and problems and everything else, Bernie and AOC, who have the credibility of a bag of potato chips, basically, and Biden, who disgraced himself, pretty much went on stage and soiled himself, in front of. Rhetorically soiled himself and possibly literally also in front of the world in a debate with Trump, disgraced this party, made it clear that everybody's been lying for I don't know how long about his competence. That's where the Democratic Party is. They're talking about running AOC. AOC, the darling AOC is going to come back. Bernie, he has just got finished, probably doing another video for AIPAC. So he's back in the mix and they're standing up against the oligarchy. What a ragged situation. I don't think I've seen a party in a more difficult situation when you got to bring Joe Biden back. And what are you going to do? You can't bring him to like a rally because he can't find his way off stage after he speaks.
They are in shambles. It's funny. I had a conversation with my mom about this today. Like a day of misfortunes, ridiculous failures. Her and I had this conversation where we were talking about this notion of Democrats and why I'm so focused on Democrats more than anything else. And my point to her was, if anything is going to get accomplished, it has to get accomplished on some level, on a party level, because unless you have a revolution, something is going to have to be put into law. Like if you get Medicare for all, somebody has to sign it. Medicare for all, it's in law, right? The only party that cares about that, vocally anyway, are Democrats, even though they don't. And that's the issue, that they don't. It's like this idea that, okay, if you want to get Social Security increase, okay, Republicans don't care about that. They don't even care about the government. Like all things being equal, they would cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, gone in a heartbeat. They don't care, right? So you have one vehicle, in that sense, that theoretically would want to get to that space if you had the right people in charge. Meaning, if you had an FDRS, then you're moving towards that because they were true believers and trying to do that stuff. That's not the party. That's not the party we got. We got the party that believes that they are mathematically set from an ethnic minority situation to win in perpetuity in the presidency. And that because of that, we don't have to do anything. That's problematic. That doesn't work, right? That doesn't get you anything. That means, politically speaking, all of those things are off the table forever because the party that would get those things don't believe in those things. Okay, well, that's a problem for me. The idea that a Republican Party wins the working class should be a wake-up call. And they should be in shambles. And you need them to be in shambles. As bad as Trump is, you need them to be in shambles to maybe reconfigure themselves into something that looks like that's worth it. They may not, right? They may just, we're perfectly fine. We're great. We're moral. The world loves us. And they get crushed again. They may do that. Or Trump may go too far, in which case they just stand there and point and say, oh, see, he's bad. He's doing bad stuff. Vote us back in. That may also happen. I guess my point of view is nothing changes if they win in the model to which they operate. And so, yeah, they need to, it needs to change. It needs to be something else. And they're in shambles. And I guess my thing is good. They need to be in shambles. Because what I don't want them to be is the typical Democrat of the Kamala Harrises of the world and think the world is great and go pushing what nobody wants. They need to be something else. And so, yes, I agree with you. They're in shambles. I would say good. Good. I don't like what Trump is doing. But they're not in a position to do anything about it in the way that they are or in the way that they were, considering their loss. So something else would need to be there by definition, because what was there prior failed at a massive effing level. So yes, they're in shambles. I'm glad. That may be controversial, but that's my
I'm with
point.
you.
Yeah, that's my thing.
Well, a couple of things. Number one, and that is that they want to believe that all they got to do is sit on the sideline and scream something about oligarchs and people come to oh boy, it will come to them. Even as Trump's numbers are ticking down, so that would mean, according to them, theirs would start to tick up. That they would get this: Trump's ticking down, we're ticking up. Ha ha, it's working. He's going down. We're getting those people. No, they're both going down.
Yeah.
People are like, they're getting where like we are. Hey, the Democrats, they're terrible. We're not voting for them. Republicans are going down. Ooh, they're pretty terrible too. They're coming to where we are, where we don't like either party. They're not like, oh, well, I'm going to leave. I left the Democrats. I'm going to the Republicans. Now I'm going to leave Republicans. I'm going to go back to the Democrats. They're like, well, they're too horrible to go back to. That's done. And when you look at them, right, it's okay. Even if I was tired of Trump, let's just say I'm a voter who is not sure what to do and I leave the Democrats and I'm independent, whoever, and I go to Trump. What is there in the Democratic platform for me to go to, right? Okay, I'm going to go back to the Democrats. What are they saying? Well, they want to go back to plenty of censorship. They're all for that. But I'm mad because Trump is censoring people when it comes to Zionism, Israel, all of that. Yeah, the Democrats are going to do that. And plus, they're going to censor you for COVID, Ukraine, and this and that, whatever they think is bad. You said something about trans people they didn't like, anything like that. Boom, they're going to censor you for, what are you going to get with Trump? You're getting censorship. I'm happy. What about the Democrats? You're going to get way more censorship. Well, that's not attractive. What about foreign policy? Yeah, they're all for nuclear war, pretty much. You're going to get blasted with them. You're going to be fried. Well, at least Trump's trying right now. Now, he may go after China. God only knows what craziness he's going to do next. At least he ain't trying to get us fried with Russia. So we got a few months to live. Who knows how much longer, but at least we got a reprieve. The Democrats, we wouldn't have lasted a week with those nutcase bastards. Right. They're basically aligned with Keir Starmer. Yeah. So you look at them and you say, what is there to attract me and to show that they are without direction? Joe Biden is like talking about making a comeback, and Bernie and AOC, they think they're going to go over. And what they don't realize is this: they don't realize that this is the thing I think that's important. They don't understand that they've been discredited. You know what I mean? They don't understand that Gaza has discredited them. I think, particularly from young people and a lot of people on the left, Gaza has discredited them. Nobody's going to listen to what you say anymore. The moral issue of our time to a lot of people was Gaza. And they looked at you. And Bernie, you said things that AIPAC literally made ran your video on their website. You walked around AOC as usual. She's always trying to keep one foot on first base and run a second. You know what I mean? Oh, it's terrible that this is happening. Well, do you think we should stop? I'm not going to comment on that. I'm just going to say it's terrible that it's, you know what I mean? She's always going to try to pretend like she's going to say the right thing about something. And then what do you think about Gaza? Trump's terrible. The Republicans are evil. They're horrible. But what about Gaza? Trump's terrible. You know what I mean? And then you're all going to vote for more money to go to the Nazis, and you're all going to stand up and wave blue and yellow flags and disgrace yourself in Congress. The Democrats don't realize that they have discredited and disgraced themselves from top to bottom, and they don't have a moral or intellectual foundation on which to stand. So they're not attracting anybody. Trump he played the game of a moral foundation, but he thought he had an intellectual foundation, but they thought, well, he had some intuition. He's going to try. Now they're like, yeah, a lot of people are like, yeah, kind of as we thought. He came in and he's just another puppet for Netanyahu, and he's going to pretend like I can say all of these things. I'm against censorship. I'm against war. I'm against bad things, except for Israel. If you just discount those, I'm for all of those things when it comes to Israel, but we'll just pretend that doesn't exist. All of the rest of the stuff, it's good in a way. All of this is good. Americans need to wake up and realize that they don't have a dog in this fight. They don't have anybody. They don't have a team. You're on one of these teams. You don't have a team. You're not on the team. They don't care about you. And when the Republicans do something that you don't like, here's what the Democrats do. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Yeah, we can fundraise off of it and we can run off of it. And then once we get in office, we can go back to hugging CIA officers, overthrowing governments, refunding the USAID, and back up our war against Russia. Nobody wants you back in to do that.
So
I think that's where we are.
You're so right. I think you're so right. I think they're trying to bend us into form, like effectively saying, "Hey, we're not going to do anything, but we will be a placeholder, and you need to accept it, or else." The Republicans will rampage and blow up government, and you will beg us to come back. And we will repeat the process over and over again. That's a sucky way to do government.
And it's not going to work. Jamarl Thomas. Don't forget, everybody, Jamarl does have a great show every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. He has lots of good guests. And what he does is all of his guests, he'll have those up by the end of the day. Most days he'll have all of the great interviews that he does. So Jamarl Thomas, check out his YouTube show, and there's lots of good stuff. And don't forget, everybody, if you're a member of either mine or his, and you're not a member of the other, make sure you subscribe in both. There's a little join button that you can click on so that you can become a member. It's $3, $4, $5. It's up to you how much you want to pay to become a member. So become a member of either and or both of our channels. And of course, follow me on Rockfin, follow me on Rumble, and of course, if subscribe, whatever, and you can see everything going by Patreon, buy me a coffee, all that kind of stuff. If you can afford to donate, that's great. If not, just share it on all your social media platforms. How can they find you and help keep your channel going, Jamarl?
Jamarl Thomas Show. It's under my name on YouTube, so definitely check me out. You can also support, as Garland pointed out, PayPal, Patreon, all that good stuff, super chat, super stickers, all that stuff helps. But yeah, Monday through Friday. I will not be on Monday, but I will be on Tuesday. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, sounds like a winner. All right, we're out, everybody. Don't forget to share this. We're out. Almost out. Almost.